hard-fought, hard-earned. The Detroit Lions' ascension to the NFC Conference Championship game is no accident, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about it. Stay tuned, everybody.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10-5, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions.
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions, and
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in right now. But before we dive on in, I just want to say to all my loyal fans and subscribers that are coming back, thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for returning to give me another view and more of your time. It means an absolute world to me that I have such loyal fans and subscribers that truly care about what I have to say about the Lions. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very, very first time, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. Again, also means the world to me that I'm able to get some of your time in today. And I just want to say, hope you all enjoy the content, but even more so, I hope to gain your subscription if I've earned and deserved it. And to everybody, I just hope and pray you're having a really, really good and blessed day. I truly do. And with that, just want to say to everybody, God bless, and let's dive into the show. So here's the thing, folks. When we take a look at what the Detroit Lions have been able to do this year, the Detroit Lions have had to work and bust their tail to get to where they're at. Again, the thumbnail image and title that I have out there should be no surprise where I'm getting this inspiration from. Because quarterback Jared Goff, at the very end of the divisional matchup against the Buccaneers, said, listen, it's no accident that the Lions are where they're at. And it is no accident. The Lions have had to earn every single damn thing that they've gotten this year. And sometimes they've had to earn it the hard way. And when you think about where the Lions are currently at, it is a very, very impressive and monumental feat to behold. Because you have to think about it. For only the second time in the Super Bowl era, the Detroit Lions are going to the NFC Conference Championship game. Only the second time in the Super Bowl era. That's a pretty big accomplishment. That's a pretty big achievement. And in fact, it's such a big accomplishment, not only for the fact of us Lions fans, because, hey, you're one game away from the Super Bowl, something that's only happened for the Lions in 1991 and now 2023, but think about how much more monumental this is for us, because you have to think about it. The Lions have been able to get back to the conference championship game for a second time sooner than two separate teams. One team being the Washington Commanders, formerly the Washington Redskins, and the second team, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, to be clear, for us Lions fans, the Dallas Cowboys are a team that we definitely don't enjoy the company of. And I'm trying to say that with all candor and all respect as I possibly can muster. And the reason why I'm making this revelation, other than the fact it's already been out on social media, but I'm having my own go of it, is I'm trying to put quote-unquote America's team under the microscope, because you got to think about it, folks. The Cowboys have definitely been the beneficiaries, again, trying to be subtle and at the same time respectful, of referees giving them certain calls, and what I would call the refs making some very blatantly bad decisions. And that's happened at least twice in the last decade. Obviously, the 2014 wild card game, and obviously Week 17 this year when we went down to Dallas. Again, the whole point is the Lions have had their fair share of bad calls when we played against Dallas, and it's really helped out the Cowboys in ways that they probably should not have earned. But my point of the matter is that despite all of that nonsense that has gone Dallas's way, the Lions, the quote-unquote lowly Lions, the hapless Lions, have gotten back to the conference championship game two times faster, and I'm trying to say that in a correct way, have gotten back to the conference championship game for a second time faster than the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, who are the most freaking valuable franchise in the NFL, who Jerry Jones has literally said he would give up his right arm and leg for, if I recall correctly. The Lions have gotten back to the conference championship game for a second time faster than Dallas has, which the last time, if I recall correctly, Dallas got to the conference championship game was in 1995. That right there ought to tell you something. If the Lions are able to get back faster than the Cowboys, that's a pretty important accomplishment. But then we have to ask ourselves the question, other than the fact that the Lions have earned what they've gotten, and it's no accident why they've earned what they've gotten. The real question is, how have they earned it? How have the Lions earned it? Because if you talk to certain fans of certain franchises, they're going to say that, well, the Lions truly haven't earned it. The Lions got handed a lot of stuff. Really? We got handed some things? Here's why I know this doesn't make any sense, and here's my argument to that point that some people are making. Let's first and foremost take a look at three different things here. Point number one. The Lions won the NFC North Division. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, David, the Vikings lost Kirk Cousins and, Aaron Rodgers wasn't in the division. Okay, so what? We've had several times in the past where certain star quarterbacks didn't play, and you know what? That's just the nature of doing business. I seem to recall Tom Brady being out for a whole year with injury. I seem to recall Peyton Manning being out a whole year with injury. That's part of the name of the game, folks. You know what? There have been times where quarterbacks have come in and you know what? They just had 1 year wonders, such as, Tommy Maddox for the freaking, Pittsburgh Steelers. You can have quarterbacks like that. Case Keenum for the Vikings a couple of years ago. You can have situations where, hey, you know what? You find a quarterback or a player and they just come in, they have one really spectacular year. And it's like, listen, Jordan Love did pretty good for the Packers. I'm not going to take away anything from him. I may not like the Packers, but I'll give Jordan Love his due. He had a pretty good year for his first year as a starter. Can't really say too much about the Vikings. They tried their best. But should you take away the Lions' accomplishment purely because of the fact that, hey, you know what? Aaron Rodgers left the division of his own choice. And, Kirk Cousins got an injury that affects quite several players over the course of any given year. You can't take away the Lions' accomplishment purely because of that. That makes no damn sense. But then you also have to think about this. You have to think about what the Lions had to do still, despite that, if you want to continue to use that as a point, to still earn that NFC North Division crown. A crown that they had not earned once since the NFC North became originated in 2002. And the last time they won a division crown was in 1993 when it was the NFC Central. Think about what the Lions had to do to earn that crown. They were 4-2 in the division record this year. They were 8-4 in the conference record this year. They were also 6-3 in the away record. And they were 6-3, and I'm going to put this as also an asterisk, that they were against 2002 playoff teams. And another asterisk on top of that, they were 6-4 in teams over 500 this year. Now, why am I saying asterisks? Because, again, personally, I think Dallas should have lost against the Lions, and I think Brad Allen really gave the Cowboys a game they should not have won. But again, c'est la vie. I'm going to be salty about that one for a long time. But the whole point is, if you take a look at all 5 of those different records I gave, some of those including the playoffs, some of those not including the playoffs, it shows that the Lions had to overcome things that in the past they have been accused of not being able to do, such as winning on the road, winning against top quality teams, winning against teams that are over 500. They've been able to do that this year. So whether or not you want to include what's going on in the division because of, freaking the Vikings or the freaking Packers, we still had to beat teams like the Chiefs. We still had to beat teams that, are really good teams. We still had to beat some of those, and we did pretty good against those teams. So to me, it's like, you know what? Even if you could say that, the fact that the Lions have won in the playoffs, that right there also should say something, because if we truly didn't belong, we wouldn't have won the first playoff game or the second playoff game. So that's point number one. Point number two, you have to take a look at how the Lions have done this year in terms of the primetime matchups that we've had, the primetime record that we have. Because the way I'm going to look at it is this. When you take a look at the fact that the Lions are in the NFC Championship game, that is kind of like the last test you're going to have before you get to the big one, the big test. And if you think about it, every single primetime game that the Lions have had up to this point are kind of like pre-tests. They're precursors, if you were. Kind of like, okay, this is what you have potentially as a litmus test about what you're potentially going to be getting into when you get to the playoffs. And if you think about it, one of the best impressive things that the Lions have done this year is how they've been able to win in the biggest games under the big lights And if you include the playoffs, the Lions have done ridiculously well in that category. Think about this one, folks. If you include the playoffs, which playoffs are primetime games, the Lions are 6-2, again, with an asterisk. Again, the Cowboys. If you don't include the playoffs, they're 4-2. Again, still an asterisk. But my whole point is this. When they've faced against top quality opponents, when they've played in primetime matchups, the Lions have demonstrated that on the biggest stage against some of the best opponents the NFL has to offer, they can hang tough with the big dogs. Now, I'm not saying every primetime matchup that they had was against really good teams, because let's be fair here. The Raiders, when we played them, were not really a good team. They were kind of floundering. That's my whole point there. Now, some people might say, well, David, what about the Broncos? When we played the Broncos had won, 6 of their last 7? I'm not going to start to say that, you know what, just because the Broncos finished their year crappy doesn't mean that the Lions still didn't have to play against a quality opponent. The Broncos had just beat the Chiefs. They had just beat a whole bunch of really good teams. The Bills as well. That's my whole point. So if you consider that, you have to further consider and add on to this. The Lions not only won those games, but consider how they won those games. They won games that were close, such as with the Kansas City Chiefs. They won 21-20. They won big against the Denver Broncos. What was it, 42-17? They won games when their defense played great, such as the first time we played the Packers when we went to Lambeau Field. They've had games where the offense played great, such as when we had the Buccaneers game that we just played last week in the divisional round. The Lions offense played great in that game. So it shows that the Lions can win under the best or worst of circumstances. And again, the Lions have never been this successful in terms of these types of games or in the playoffs. Because it's like, listen, under the best or worst of circumstances and against some of the best competition, the Lions have still found ways to win, and sometimes very convincingly. So again, you've earned the spot, Detroit, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Take what Jared Goff said and run it to the bank, because it's the truth. But again, that's only point 2 of 3. Let's think about this one as well. The Lions also showed this year their ability to take adversity on the chin and find ways to win. What am I talking about? The comeback from behind games, winning games that we're not necessarily supposed to win. Here's what I mean about this. Let's call it for what it is. The Lions had some games this year that they were too close for comfort. We won some games that were a lot closer for comfort than what we would have really wanted. But we still found ways to win those games. Such games include as the Kansas City Chiefs, won by 1 measly point. And if you think about it, going into that game for the Thursday night opener, not really much of anybody gave us a shot outside of Detroit. If you think about it, the Detroit Lions fans were pretty much the only one that thought the Lions had a shot, and probably the Detroit Lions players, Dan Campbell, so on and so forth. But if you think about it, most of the analysts, hell, even the announcer after we won the game called it an asterisk win for the Lions because, the freaking Chiefs didn't have Chris Jones or Travis Kelce. So it's like, listen, almost everybody outside of the Lions fandom and outside of the Lions organization thought the Lions shouldn't win that game, but yet they won. They started the game in primetime, season opener against the defending Super Bowl the Super Bowl defending champs, and they won a game coming from behind in the fourth quarter because it was a fourth quarter comeback, and they won against an opponent they weren't supposed to beat. Because if you go back to the betting odds, if I recall correctly, Kansas City was favored by 2.5 or 3 points or something like that. So the Chiefs were definitely favored to win that game even without Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, and we still won. That was game number 1. Take a look at this second game here. Take a look at the Chargers game. Now, this was a game where the offense, Jared Goff, they were at their finest, driving the offense down repeatedly, getting points, trying to keep us in the game. And it was a high-scoring affair. For most fans, that's typically the way you want it because it's very fun to watch, it's very flashy, it's very entertaining. And the way the Lions won that game, they drove down the last drive, won on a field goal, got out of there with the victory. So again, when you think about it, the Lions in that game, even though the Chargers I think at the time were 3-5 or something like that, they were only favored to win that game by 2 points. Only by 2 points. And yet again, going down to the last moments, the Lions still found a way to win, drove down the field, and beat a team like that, and on the road. Because again, say what you want about the Chargers, they still had freaking, Justin Herbert at the time. They still had Bosa. They still had Keenan Allen. They still had weapons that were going to cause the Lions problems, and boy, did they cause us problems because the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. So again, that was a game where the Lions proved that their offense could win in those tight clutch moments and could win games where it was literally, almost about to pass them by. And then the final game I can think of where the Lions came back to win. The first time we played the Bears. Because think about it. The Chargers game showed how well the Lions offense could do and still win a game. The Bears game, the first time we played them, was the exact opposite. The Lions offense couldn't do much of anything. Or rather, I should say, Jared Goff did not have his finest moment donning the Honolulu blue and silver. And I'm the biggest Goff fan in the world. When you have 3 interceptions, even if 2 of them aren't your fault, not much else is going to matter to most people. It might matter to me, but most other people ain't going to care. But the point of the matter is, the Lions got down against the Bears, who were starting to catch on, who were starting to figure themselves out, and even with the turnover battle clearly going in the Bears' favor, the Lions were able to figure out a way to get enough points to come out of the game with a victory. And outside of that Bears game the first time, the only other game where the offense really truly looked completely out of sync for the entirety of the game was the second Packers game that we played, which is, if I recall correctly, was the very next week on Thanksgiving. But again, the Lions found a way to win, and again, against a division opponent who was starting to catch on. So that's my whole point here. There have been games that the Lions had to win ugly. There were games where the Lions had to hang tough. There were games where the Lions had to really pull out every stop they had to try and win. But yet they still found a way to do it. They still found a way to win despite the odds and still found a way to do it in a gritty, tough fashion, just like Dan Campbell has expressed with his team multiple times over the last couple of years. So again, when you think about it, take a look at the whole argument I've presented here. The summation of it is this. Goff said after the divisional win that the Lions aren't in the championship game. They aren't where they're at by accident. They have had to work hard, they have had to bust their ass, and they have had to earn everything that they've gotten. So when you hear a fan on Facebook, on Twitter, or some analyst that says, you know what, the Lions have had an easier path to get to the Super Bowl the championship game because of XYZ, because, Kirk Cousins wasn't playing, or because Aaron Rodgers wasn't there, or because, the Bucs weren't all that good of an opponent, I'm just going to put it quite plainly here. Screw them. You want to know why? Because it's like, listen, we still had to beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams and Cooper Kupp and Nakua. We still had to beat them. We still had to beat that team, which was considered the most dangerous wildcard team going into the playoffs. We then had to beat a Bucs team that had just beat the freaking Eagles. So it's like, listen, screw them in what they think. They're wrong. But I think the Lions now have an opportunity to make history on Sunday night, and we're about to see if they can do it or not. But until that time, I just want to say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. I also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and had a chance to do so, highly encourage y'all, please subscribe, but also make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as soon as you subscribe, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. I also encourage y'all, please, to do this. Make sure you share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. And with that, I just want to say I hope y'all enjoyed the content. I hope y'all have had a good day, and I just want to say thank y'all for once again subscribing to the channel if I just earned your subscription. And with that being said, to everybody, God bless. I hope y'all enjoyed the show, and until the next time we meet, I'll see y'all in the next episode.